Now that Venom has spawned another symbiote, how will he train her? This is the complete story series. We take some of your and my favorite comic book storylines and break them down into digestible recaps. Then we dramatically read them back to you with a little bit of voices and some awesome music. If this is your first video, welcome to the channel. I hope we convince you to subscribe, but if you've been up to date with our Sunday Venom videos, then I thank you for sticking it out to the end. This is actually the end of the original Venom series before it was canceled to allow for Secret Wars. But it's not the end of Venom. We'll be starting Space Knight Venom next week, and it picks up with this storyline when he joined up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. But thank you all for going through the original run with me. Now in our last video, Flash had been in pursuit of the criminal Lord Ogre who had placed a hit out on Flash. One of the assassins was a man who had inherited Jack-o'-lantern's spirit and visited Flash's apartment. During their fight, Jack had attacked Andy, and in a desperate attempt to save her, Flash split the Venom symbiote, giving her a suit just like his. Weeks began to pass, and one night Flash wakes up to see Andy sitting at the foot of his couch. He asks her what she's doing because, you know, the whole watching him sleep thing is kinda weird. She tells him that she's sorry if she woke him from a pleasant dream, but it's time for him to suit up and go to work. Flash says, hang on a minute, it's still morning and broad daylight outside, they just need to relax. But Andy shouts, her father is dead! It's been 3 weeks and they've done nothing about it! So how long do they need to wait before they do something? They have a lead and they have the resources, they're heroes for God's sake! Flash tries to tell her that he understands how she feels, but this whole wanting to kill thing doesn't sound like her at all. Sounds more like the symbiote. But Andy stops him, telling him he doesn't know how she's supposed to feel. He barely knows her! But as the two of them go on arguing, Flash's phone begins to ring. When he answers it, Katy says that she's going to need him to get his ass to Austin. There's something that he needs to see. Now. Flash turns to Andy and tells her, look, I'm gonna be out of town for a few days, and when I get back, we will take down Ogre together. Once Flash reaches Austin, Katy sneaks Flash into the morgue to show him what she was talking about. A dead body slides out, and Flash realizes that this man is Damon Hellstrom, minus the pentagram on his chest. Flash tells her that it can't be him. He locked him away, but Katy says that there are reports of Damon popping up all over the country. Maybe he's spawning like those symbiote of yours. Speaking of which, where's your new sidekick? Flash tells her that she is not a sidekick. They are still working that one out. Meanwhile, back in Philadelphia, Andy is wasting no time pursuing some of Lord Ogre's men. She tears through them as they all shout, "It's Venom!" And she cuts one man down and tells him, "No! You only wish I was Venom! You can call me Mania!" Andy continues ripping through the guards, asking where she can find Ogre, but then a voice tells her that he's right here. Up in the balcony, Ogre says that she can come get him if she can get up here. And 3 assassins jump down to fight Mania. As the 3 of them run towards her, Andy charges back at them, her hands covered in blood. Even though she cut one of them, another one of them cut her. The assassin that Andy cut begins to choke on his blood, and then one of the others shouts, he's begging for them to kill her. As the remaining 2 move in, Andy grabs one and throws her into the remaining one. And Ogre calls out, telling her, "Not bad, but I'm no common street thug, and I'm not scared of some monster in a mask." Andy tells him that she knows. He's just a guy who hides behind a group of freaks because he isn't man enough to kill a girl's father himself. Though he may not be afraid of a girl in a mask, it sure looks like he's running away. However, over at Peak Maximum Security Prison, Flash sneaks into Damon's cell to ask what it is that he saw. Flash tells Damon that he saw someone who looked just like him, dead, who had their pentagram ripped off. So he says that his theory is that this may have something to do with the Descent and who's going to replace the current Hell Lord. Damon says that that is an honor someone would murder for, and they may even try to eliminate targets like myself. Flash asks if he means targets like themselves, but Damon tells him no, I'm afraid not. And as he looks at him now, "You're no longer marked, Flash." Flash asks, how could that be? Who has the mark? And back in Philadelphia, Andy sits waiting for Flash, showing the mark on her. Across the way, Crossbones says that they have their new target. Now it's time for them to hunt and skin her. Meanwhile, Damon explains that he is prepared for the Descent. He made shadows of himself to watch the world. However, the copies have become too headstrong in their pursuit of exploring the competition of the Descent, and they started to act on their own. Hell, he isn't even sure if he's the original. Flash then asks, what about the marks though, the one Mephisto branded him with? And Damon tells him, you should consider yourself lucky. Not only are you free of that infernal obligation, but someone seems to be killing those with them. So I would very much like to stay in this cell if it's all the same to you. Back over in Philadelphia at Ogre Ogre's penthouse, some of Ogre's guards stand watch in front of his doors, asking each other if they think that Venom is going to find them. The other says that what he saw the other night wasn't Venom. It was like a she-Venom. But just then the black tendrils slowly begin to wrap themselves around the guard's neck, and Andy begins beating on the roof. Ogre tells the others that they will wait and see if this child is half the beast that she claims to be. And just then Andy breaks through. Within seconds she subdues the two guards and tells Ogre, "There's no more running for you!" He says no more running for either of us, and he grabs Andy by the throat. He goes on telling her that she is so eager to kill and not think of the consequences, and then he points to a device in his chest. So she asks, "So what? If you die, a bomb goes off taking out a good chunk of the population with you?" Well, that's a real move, but it won't stop her from beating his because this suit totally has protection against chemicals and toxic gases. And if it means that she has to let some people die in the process of stopping him, she can live with that. Ogre asks, "What do you mean?" And she tells him that she's calling his bluff. Suddenly another set of tendrils appear and Flash charges through, throwing the two of them away. Ogre says, "You just couldn't sit this one out, could you? You had to come and save your little friend, huh?" As the two guards back up, Flash grabs and slams them down, telling him, "No, idiot, I'm saving you for her." Flash turns back to Andy, shouting, "What do you think you're doing? If I hadn't been here, you would have set the bomb off." But Andy stops him, stating, "It was a bluff. People like him are just cowards." And Ogre gets up and Flash turns to him, telling him, "No, you don't get to go anywhere. And if you move again, I swear I'm gonna let her loose." Flash then says he's trying to protect her. There might be something happening to her, and she may have been marked. And then a voice tells him not to worry about that. Just let him worry about the Devil's Mark. Crossbones steps in with his men and tells Master Mayhem to go ahead and do his thing. Mayhem begins to open up his robe, and as the demons begin to pour out of him, he tells them to kill everything except the Mark. Flash shouts that this is exactly why he told her to wait. "Next time, you need to listen." As Flash and Andy start to fight off the demons, Andy begins to hear a beeping sound, and she says that she's not so sure that Ogre was actually bluffing. Flash says that he has an idea, and he grabs the bomb and shoves it into Mayhem's chest. Crossbone then asks, "Did you just shove a bomb into his?" And Mayhem says he really didn't need this. He could have gotten steady work as a teacher or something. The rest of the demons start to surround the two of them, and as they close in, Andy shouts for them to back off. The mark begins to shine, and the demons listen. Flash says, "Someone's in trouble," and the demons all turn back to Crossbones and Mayhem. As they fight their way out, Flash and Andy make their escape, and a short while later, Flash and Andy head back to Flash's apartment, stating, "I might have an idea of what to do next. Back when I fought the UFOs, they were using strange tech that could go back into someone's memories. So this might work in communicating with the symbiote since we're all mixed together." He then says that if something goes wrong, there's a syringe there that can stop him. And as Andy looks at the memory probe, she says, "This is like the worst plan ever." And Flash tells her bad ideas are kind of my bread and butter, but who knows what we're gonna find. He touches down on the orb and he begins to see himself. And he calls out, "Is anyone there?" And the symbiote responds, stating, "You're never alone." The symbiote then says that they could purge the intruder inside of them. But Flash tells them no. "We've turned a little girl into a..." But the symbiote shouts, "We saved you!" Flash tells him, "The brand, it was my mark, not yours to give." And the symbiote tells him, "No, it was us who were branded. We cut the sickness out of us." Flash pulls his arm off of the orb, and as Andy reaches for the syringe, he stops her. She asks if he found the answers that he needed, and Flash tells her, "Yeah, maybe, no, not really. But he does have an idea, and it's going to require them to make another deal with the devil." The two of them make their way down to the ruined out casino in Atlantic City, and Andy says that there's a joke to be had here, ruined casino taking a chance. Flash tells her, yeah, well, he doesn't feel like laughing, so they should just do what they came to do. Flash takes out a coin stating that this place was deserted after a mob killing, and this coin was anointed in the blood of a mad prophet. So with a little luck, all of it being bad, Andy looks at him telling him, "These informants of yours, they're kind of strange people." As Flash drops the coin into a slot machine, he pulls a lever, and it rings out 3 devils. And Andy asks, "Okay, so now what?" Suddenly fire appears behind them, and Mephisto asks, "To what do I owe this pleasure?" Andy tells him, "Well, being the devil and liking to make deals, how about you remove the brand from my soul and me and my gym teacher won't stomp a mud hole in you?" Flash says, "Yeah, what she said." Mephisto stands there looking at her, and he bursts out laughing. Flash tells him, "Look, there's a problem with the brand. I was supposed to be branded back in Vegas, but right now the mark isn't on me." Mephisto explains that the symbiote there has a few tricks up its sleeve, or rather in its flesh. A while ago, the symbiote absorbed its own clone, and it appears that it spit itself back out, bearing the mark. Since the mark was purged, it had to go somewhere, and Venom used the clone as its host. Flash asks, what does that all even mean? And Mephisto says that he would love to stay and melt their brains with answers, but he's afraid that that's just going to have to wait, seeing as they have company. Mayhem's demons appear and they begin to breathe fire down on the two of them while Crossbones bursts in through the front door. Crossbones calls out to the men that they have to kill everything they can see. Just leave enough skin to tear the mark off the girl. Andy slams her arms into the ground, and in the crowd, a giant arm bursts out through the ground, swinging around at the guards. During the confusion of the attack, Flash jumps on Crossbones and begins to strangle him, trying to bite his head. Crossbones manages to cut through Flash's head, but Flash stabs down on his hand, telling him, "You're not going anywhere." Andy finishes taking out some more of the guards, and more of Mayhem's demons fly out. Mayhem then watches as the demons don't really do much, and he tells himself that the demons are turning on him. Behind him, Mephisto says that it is truly tragic when your underlings betray you, isn't it? Mayhem asks, "What are you doing here?" And Mephisto says, "I'm rather disappointed in you for trying to muck up my plans and harvest my marks." Mephisto holds out his arm, and a giant hand starts to pull itself out of Mayhem. And Mephisto tells him that he will at least be somewhat useful. The demons all begin to pull and make their way out, and Mephisto tells them to rise. The monsters of evil! Flash shouts that he knows them. He told them never to return, and Mephisto tells him, "That is true, but you no longer have any influence over them. They are now the girls to command." And Andy says, "All right then, tear them apart." The monsters of evil start destroying anything and everything in their paths, leaving only Crossbones and Mayhem left. Flash asks if they surrender now, but as the green mist swirls around them, he says that the people that he works for will never be done. Not until they get what they're wanting. The mist begins to cover the two of them, and they disappear. Andy looks around, stating that all of the Nazi guys, demons, and even monsters are gone now. Mephisto appears, stating that he sent the monsters of evil back home, and the others, well, they're just a little snack for the trip. Flash then points his gun at Mephisto, telling him it's time to get down to brass tacks. Release Andy or do whatever he needs to do to free her. And Mephisto looks at him. "And if I say no?" Without saying a word, Flash opens fire on Mephisto's face. And Mephisto tells him that was not really a smart move. "Though I should fillet you where you stand, it seems that we both have mutual enemies, and they have plans for dear Mania. The only reason I will allow you to continue to live is to continue to act as the girl's guardian." Andy laughs, asking, "How could she have the mark when she never made the deal?" And Mephisto laughs, stating, "There are so many questions, but really, you are not the only bleeding hearts in my schedule. But before going, I will leave you with a little tidbit. Back when the deal was made, it was never made with Flash, it was made with a symbiote." And with that, Mephisto vanishes. As the two stand there, Flash asks Andy if she's okay. And she says that she isn't really sure. She doesn't know how she's supposed to feel right now. So Flash hugs her and tells her that they will get through it. He's not going to stop until he finds a way to remove that mark. And that concludes the original Venom run, which is kind of funny in the way that it ends, because what actually happens next is Secret Wars interrupts this storyline, ending it, and when the Venom storyline comes back, it starts up with Venom Space Knight. Now, we already did issue 1 for that, so I'm gonna go ahead and link that down below, but next week we will be continuing the next chapters of Venom Space Knight. But do not fret, my dear viewers / listeners. We will eventually get back to Andy, because the reason I decided to do the Agent Venom storyline, even though it was left on this crazy cliffhanger, is because the writers were smart enough to go back towards it. And the Civil War II tie-in for Venom is actually all about him fixing this situation finally. So we will get back to it. But if you want to know what's going on with this and you want to keep up to date, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and give this video a like, because I, like to see you people liking my stuff. It makes me feel good. It really does. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian. I'll see you next time right here.